Welcome to Small Arms Solutions. Today we're looking at the CZ Bren 2S. Widely anticipated. However, not necessarily the way that we thought. But first of all, I want to thank Michiko William Trotter for loaning this to us so we could take a look at it. And he gets some of the coolest things. I don't know where he gets this stuff from, but he does. And I had a chance to talk to him in depth about this rifle, and his knowledge of this was absolutely incredible. I'll talk a little bit about this rifle. What we have here is the 805 Bren S1. Now, this is a rifle that I am extremely fond of. You see a video I did on here. I did a comparison between this and the FN Scar, and I actually thought this was a better rifle for the most part than the FN Scar. It's certainly a better deal for as far as the $1,000 cheaper. It has most of the same features. Was the 805 perfect? No, it was not, but it had a lot of awesome aspects to it: durability, reliability. It had one of the nicest triggers I've seen on a military rifle. It was comfortable, and it was also modular enough to change things around. You know, one of the things that we had changed on this was I got a larger grip insert here because I have very, very large hands. The other thing that I had done with this was I changed out the magazine well on here. Now, this has a removable magazine well. There's two. You have what we have here, which takes standard Stenag AR-15 magazines. And what we have here is basically a G36 magazine. This is what the Czech military actually use. They don't use the 5.56 millimeter Stenag magazines. They utilize these on this rifle. And however, that's changed over the last few years. They have replaced this with the Bren 2. What you see here is basically the Czech military's Bren 2. Now, last year, probably around October, I was in Czech Republic, and I had an opportunity to talk with the guys directly from CZ about what their plans were. That was the first time I got a chance to take a look at the new Bren 2. And to see all the changes that they had made. They were at the request of the Czech military. And my question to them was, when do we expect to see these made in the U.S. or brought to the U.S.? And he actually didn't think it was going to be for a few years for this reason. If you look at how long it took to get the 805 here, part of getting this gun here was you have to have parts that are American-made and an assembly here in the U.S. That takes coordination. It takes being able to get the parts from the Czech Republic over here in compliance with ATF 922R, having the parts made here to make it compliant with 922R, getting it assembled, and getting it distributed. So they would have to do the exact same thing with the Bren 2. Now, this was able to come in because it was a pistol. The rifle, not so easy. So for them to import the parts for the rifle, they'd have to have the assembly set up here in the U.S. To assemble and the 922R parts. In a minute here, we're going to go over the two of these and see what the main differences are. But we're going to go over the Bren 2. So what we have here basically is, I guess I want to call it a soft release. The Bren 2, the commercial version, has not yet been released. These were the military versions, and from what CZ is telling us, it was not. This is not an example of what the new ones are going to be. There's some other things that they wanted for the commercial market. Now, these were brought in very limited numbers by Bill Hicks as a distributor. Most of these came out of Prepper Gun Shop. So there was relatively few of them. I think there was like 3,000 or so. And they had some different barrel length. Their pistols with the 8, 11, and 14-inch barrel. So the full-length carbine is not out. They couldn't import the full-length carbine because of the fact that it would have to be 922R compliant. Pistols, again, don't. So that's why you didn't see any of the carbines come in. As you can see, we have a pistol brace stock on here. So going over some of the specifications on this, you're looking at 6.75 pounds. It's roughly 1 pound lighter than the 805. So, lighter is certainly always better. So you have a full polymer lower receiver here. You have a polymer trigger, a very wide polymer trigger. We have the ambidextrous bolt catch. We have a ambidextrous slide release. We have ambidextrous safety. We have a non-reciprocating charging handle. It comes with folding backup sights. We have an adjustable gas system on the front, and we have a 3-prong flash suppressor. This particular one is the 8-inch barrel. These are cold hammer forged barrels. So let's go over the differences between the original 805 versus the Bren pistol. Now, first off is the stock. This is sort of irrelevant because this is a carbine, this is a pistol. Pistol grip. The pistol grip on here is a lot different in its shape. It's a lot smoother. You have a much rougher texture on here. So this texture is much nicer, but this one here, it's not available to have the extension for it yet for the larger hands. Trigger. Now, the trigger on the 805 Bren, this one is significantly better than that on the newer one. You have this trigger is much narrower. This certainly is much wider. This one's steel, that's polymer. Now the trigger mechanism, as we're going to see when we take this one apart, you're going to see is polymer on here as well. It gives you a very, very long take-up. And I don't believe it is nearly as accurate as this one. There's no way. This particular one represents one of the finest trigger mechanisms in the industry, one of the nicest feels. For as far as the magazine well, this is all one piece on the Bren 2S. On here, 2-piece. So this one here, you can use 2 different magazines. This one here is strictly designed for the Stenag magazine, which basically is telling us that the Czech Army is now going over to the Stenag magazine. The charging handle is much larger on the Bren 2 than it is on here. And most importantly, the original 805 is reciprocating. This is non-reciprocating. So that is been a major thing that some people really do not like the reciprocating charging handle. However, both of these you can remove the charging handle and put it over to the other side. CZ 805, the standard Bren, does not have any lock open on the last round, and the only way to lock the bolt to the rear is to push in this button right here and pull back. Now to release, you have to just pull back and release. There's no lever for you to be able to do that. The Bren 2 has 2 different bolt catch mechanisms. You have one that's located down here on the front of the trigger, push upward or push down. You also have a standard location here as well. Now that certainly is a major benefit, I believe. For as far as the magazine release, you do have ambidextrous magazine release as well, which you had on both of these with the standard 5.56 Stenag magazine, and of course with the standard magazine that they were using, you had a paddle release on the 805 for the G36 type magazine. Safety on here is a little bit larger. It's polymer versus this one here, which is metal. Probably the feel of the Bren 2 is a little bit nicer than that. Now, for as far as the sights are concerned, they offer a luminous paint on the backup sights on the 805 Bren 2. Now, another difference is in the gas system itself with the regulator. On this one here, on the CZ 805, the standard, you have 2 positions. You have a standard and you have a adverse condition, which lets in more gas, which is only 2 positions. On the 805 2S here, you have 3 positions. You have a standard, you have an adverse, and then you also have a suppressed. So this one's much easier to make suppressed than this version is here as well. If you also notice, we have M-lock on here versus the removable segments that you see on here, 1913 rail. So this is also going in with the theme of the industry is all going over towards M-lock. Now, if you look at the muzzle devices, this one here had come with a muzzle brake on it. I replaced that with a standard A1 style birdcage. And if you notice on this one, we have more of a spiral type flash suppressor. Now, this is a more effective with a 3-prong than it is with the birdcage for as far as a flash suppressor. Now, a lot of people don't like these because they can catch on foliage or whatnot. Or they can catch on various types of things. So these have not been as popular throughout the industry, throughout military rifles, but it is far more effective. It's very similar to that of the Smith Enterprises Vortex, which is, in my opinion, the best in the world for as far as flash retardation. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do some disassembly here, and we're going to compare the bolt carrier groups between these two. Now, for disassembly, of course, we're going to check to make sure everything is clear. But we have pins that are now captive. Unlike the CZ 805S1 here, these pins are removable, which you'll see when we take that one apart. These are captive. You have 2. You push backward on that lever, drop that down, remove the stock assembly. Now we just pull back, we can pull out the recoil spring assembly. Now to remove the bolt carrier group, we drop the bolt carrier right out the back. Then we can pull backward on here to remove the charging handle. Now we can adjust that to left or right side, so we're just going to throw it over here to the right hand side. Set that aside. Now taking a closer look at the trigger mechanism, we have a lot of polymer components in here, and which also gives you this really, really long take-up before she actually fires. All polymer, 1 piece. Everything drops right into place. Very, very simple. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take apart the 805. So, again, make sure that we're empty. So you have captive pins on here similar to that of the H and K. Two pins. Now we can pull down the trigger mechanism. We have a button on the top here we're going to push in. Push down to remove the stock assembly. We have our recoil spring assembly. Pull the latch. The bolt carrier comes right out. That's all there is to it. Now, benefit of the original one is by popping upward, I can remove this magazine well, and I can put on this one here, and this is pinned in place, so this one's not going to come out. This is the way I keep it, is with the original magazines. Now, as we can see, the bolt mechanisms are very similar between the two. Problem is with the original CZ Bren 805, you are not able to disassemble it. This is something that I really cannot explain why they would make it so you cannot disassemble the bolt carrier group for cleaning. You could, but it would be very, very difficult to get the pins back in place. The rear pin is pinned over. So I never really got that. Now, this gun does not get dirty. Is it absolutely necessary? No, but there is going to come a time where you're going to need to do some maintenance on the thing. And right now, really, all you're going to be able to use is like some G96 gun blast or something like that. You know, you can reach the breech face to get that there. But this I always thought was a design flaw on not being able to take apart the bolt carrier mechanism. They corrected that on the Bren 2. So for disassembly, we have a frying pin retaining pin. Drops that out like so. Now we have a spring-loaded catch here. Pull outward on that. Firing pin and firing pin spring come out. We just lift the cam pin right out, and the bolt comes right out. Now, the way this is set up for as far as the extractor, they don't really want you disassembling the extractor on here, so I'm not going to remove that. But this enables you to get right to everything and to be able to clean it. So, major enhancement on the S2 for that. You know, especially using blanks and so forth, unless the Czech Army provided people with a bath of solvent or something to be able to get inside of there and be able to blow it out. I'm not quite sure. You know, a lot of conscript armies, they don't want things to be any more complicated than they have to. So perhaps being a conscript army, they made it so it was soldier-proof. You wouldn't lose any of the major parts, the small parts. That could have been a reason, but I don't think that it was a good reason by no means. Reassembly is very simple. Install the bolt backing. I'll make sure your extractor is facing to the right. You have your cam slot. We can drop the cam pin right in, oriented, going vertically. We have to make sure that we keep the spring on the firing pin. Drop in like so. And we just rotate the cam pin until that drops into place. And we have the firing pin lock engaged. Now we can take our firing pin retaining pin and reassemble. That's all there is to it. So now we're going to do some reassembly. Again, the original Bren. So the 805 we're going to drop in the bolt carrier. And we need to line up the groove as such for the charging handle. Now, one thing I do want to say about the 805, I did get the K&S Precision. They had a improved, much more gripping surface charging handle. That did not work out well for me. I had that, and somehow something bent in there, and it got caught and it was scraping on here. I sent it back to the K&S. They said everything looked there was fine, but there was some flaw within the rifle that they said. Now, I haven't had that problem with the original one, but with theirs, for some reason, there was an issue with it scraping. So I would not recommend you guys get the K&S charging handle. I had a very negative experience with that. So we're going to take our recoil spring. Pop it in like so. So we drop that down and lock that in place. Now we take our trigger mechanism, and from the back, tilt in. We line up our two screws. Now these I have replaced. These are K&S pins. They work very, very well compared to the originals. There we have it. So now we're going to go over to the S2. We'll drop in our bolt carrier group. We're going to have our recoil spring assembly. Now if you notice the shape on the back here, you'll see you have the horseshoe shape. horseshoe shape here. So you need to make sure this goes in properly. Just like that. Push in your pen. Again, these are captive. That's very, very nice. Now we're going to take our trigger mechanism, insert the same way. And that's all there is. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to take it to range and we're going to see how it shoots. With a shorter barrel on here, I shot relatively close, so I was well under 100 yards. This thing shot decently. Targets really weren't noteworthy, but we had a very accurate rifle. I'm looking forward to getting one of the carbines in here. Very reliable rifle. It took everything that I gave it. I gave it Black Hills 55 grain full metal jacket, SIG 55 grain full metal jacket, SIG 69 grain OTM. I also used some Black Hills the Mark II 6.2 in it, some Remington UMC. I had quite a bit of different types of ammunition that I put in it. And it did everything. Now, when I compare these two, I would have loved to have seen this trigger mechanism in that one, because this trigger mechanism is just so nice compared to this one. You have such a long take up on the Bren 2S here. I just prefer this trigger. As far as the lower receiver is concerned, this being one piece, I could take it or leave it. I do like the texture on here much better than this, but I do like the ability to use the G36 magazine, but evidently this is outdated now. This is only in use with the Stanag type magazines. For as far as the barrel is concerned, that barrel is a little bit thicker than the one you see on here. This definitely has a better muzzle device on it than this one here does. For as far as the stock assembly, again, this is a pistol brace, so it's a little harder to do a comparison between that and the stock. As far as the reliability, excellent. The fact you have captive pins on here is a really good enhancement over having to get these aftermarket ones, because this is such a pain having the little HK type clips on there where these are removable. You're more apt to lose these. For as far as the safety is concerned, there's a little bit more surface on the Bren 2 than there is on this one here, but it's not really noteworthy whether one's better than the other. The big thing has always been the reciprocating charging handle. That's up to you. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me in any way having a reciprocating charging handle. To me, it's neither here nor there. For you, you may have a preference of whether you like having a stationary charging handle or having one that reciprocates. I mean, all you guys who love AKs, that's reciprocating. A lot of these guns are. There's very few that aren't, to say the least. Overall, it's a very, very nice gun. I'm very anxious to get in an actual carbine that's going to compete head on with this one to see for reliability and accuracy and everything. It'll be more of an apples to apples rather than the apples to oranges with a pistol. But you're able to see all the mechanical aspects of the S2. Now, I'm not quite sure what the differences are going to be on the production versions. As we said previously, these are actual military versions. This is what the military ones are like. There were some changes that the CZ USA wanted to request for the commercial market. I'm not quite sure what those are. I expect you'll see that at the SHOT Show this year. Unfortunately, I won't be there to see that, but I will be on the phone with CZ right after SHOT Show, trying to find out when we're going to be seeing these in the carbine versions. The carbine version, I'll probably get one of those for my collection. You know, I tend to like the full-length rifles. I haven't really gotten myself into these pistols as much yet. I hope you did enjoy this video. If you do, please click like, please subscribe, even better share, and please consider becoming a Patreon. Thank you.